Well, welcome to Cooking for Wellness with Central Ohio Urology Group. Tonight we have Chef Jason Johnson and our dietitian Lori Coleman, and I am Darlene, the program manager here at Cancer Support Community, and we are very excited tonight for Chef and Lori to be talking about It's Alive, fermented foods. And Chef is going to be starting off with Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Sauerkraut Latkes?
Correct. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be before you again, and it's always good to have Lori right here, actually in person. We are social distancing, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's good to be with you and for you to join us again for another great Cooking for Wellness class. And as Darlene said, yes, it's alive, but not really. We will be discussing some different fermented types of ingredients that you can use and how they benefit the body and your journey of wellness. The first recipe, the latkes, are basically in a sense a potato pancake. And so we're going to put a little spin on that by adding some sauerkraut to that. And some apples, some really great, we're going into a fall, we're here in September, so we're moving into the fall season. So these are great, wonderful flavors that will be able to really give you that nice warmth during this time of year with also some great nutritional value. So if you've ever made a potato pancake, of course you can't make a potato pancake without potatoes. So we have some good russet potatoes, which we've washed and cleaned. Now, most of the time it says to, you want to peel them or so. But I always think, Lori, that, the skin of potato and certain vegetables are actually beneficial because there's a lot of nutritional value in there. So we're not going to peel these. I'm going to leave that peel on there because we want all the nutritional value that we can to go into our dish. So we're going to start by going ahead and to shred our potatoes and get started on our potato sauerkraut latkes.
And that is absolutely something I would recommend, is leaving the peel. We know that you can get 28% of your vitamin C from one serving of potato, the RDI for vitamin C, and 26% of the RDI for potassium. And that is only going to happen if the peel is still there. So definitely leave the peel, leave the whole potato. Harvestable state is always what we're shooting for. So that will go for the apples that are going into this dish as well. We want the peel there. With apples, you got 95 calories and 4 grams of fiber, but that is also only going to happen if the peel is still there. The apples are another really good source of vitamin C. So this particular dish is going to do a lot for supporting the immune system. And by the time we add in the sauerkraut, which will diversify the microbiome in regards to it being a fermented food, all the way around, this is going to be really beneficial.
So we got potatoes nice and shredded in here. And as Lori said, we're going to go ahead and take an apple. And I've gotten, these are some Fuji apples because you want a nice firm apple that can hold up, in a sense, its texture and not turn to mush as it cooks. So you want to be able to check and have an apple variety that does well cooked. You don't want one that is best, because you have your certain apples like your Gala apples that are good for like salads and raw applications. But then you have things like your Gala, which is a sweet apple, but it's also firm and crisp and can hold up even in cooking. Usually you use a Fuji apple when making applesauce, so which is a cooked application. So we're going to take it skin and all, like Lori said, keep the nutritional value on there. We're going to shred that up too, right in here with our potatoes. And I'm using the large holes because we want our potato latkes to have a little texture to them. So we're using the large holes on our grater to be able to get those in here. One potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, 5 potato, 6 potato, 7 potato more. And this is a good side dish that you can be able to have, but all the nutrients that's going into this, and it could be a breakfast option, or of course a dinner option with this as a side dish, or maybe with a side of eggs or so for breakfast. I think it'll be really great, with the apples in there and even the sauerkraut. And the good thing, and we'll get to about the sauerkraut, because I know people are already saying sauerkraut in my potato latkes or my potato pancakes, and then you think about that with breakfast. We rinsed off the sauerkraut so that some of the tartness has been removed, and then you remember we have some apples that are pretty sweet, which is going to balance out any tartness that the sauerkraut is going to have.
With that sauerkraut, one thing I want to make sure people understand, you can have a cup of sauerkraut for 27 calories. So when you look at that nutritionally, that is a huge benefit. 27 calories is giving 4 grams of fiber. There's very few foods that you can get that much redeeming quality for very few calories. So you want to, if you like it and you find an application like this, use as much as you like. The ratios don't have to be exactly what the recipe is saying. You can balance that any way you like. And if the sauerkraut is the most appealing piece, use more of it.
Yes. So we have our sauerkraut, and I've rinsed this off just to, a little bit of that pungentness out. And then I make sure that I squoze them so that they're dry. So there's not because we're going to already have enough moisture from the potatoes and from the apples. So we don't want to add any extra moisture in there when we add the sauerkraut. So just enough sauerkraut in here to mix in. And then you probably are wondering about the moisture that may have come from the shredded apples and potatoes. That's where when we add the flour, that's going to help soak that up and create a binding, and then also the eggs. Then I added a little bit of cornstarch. Cornstarch will help to absorb any extra liquid also, and to make sure that we get a nice bind on it. Now we're going to add a little bit of salt. The salt, of course, is going to enhance any flavors, and then a little bit of pepper. And you can add any other type of, herbs or spices in here that would complement. There's apples in here, and there's sauerkraut in here. So, why not? You can add some nice warm flavors in here, like even some sage or some thyme. You can add in here that'll still complement even the apple and the potato and the sauerkraut. So, you don't have to just limit yourself to just salt and pepper. You can add some different flavors in here. What would be good too? If you even shredded up some sweet potatoes.
That's what I was thinking.
Shred up some sweet potatoes in this. And so the apples and the sauerkraut and even shredding up sweet potatoes will make it really, really good.
Right.
So
I would put green onion too. That's me.
So we have some green onion. Matter of fact, I have some over here, so we can add some green onion in here also. So we have some flour. And this is actually a gluten-free flour. It's a 1-for-1. It's a 1-for-1. So it's the same properties as if it was just regular all-purpose flour. So you can keep it gluten-free. And this is just a little bit of cornstarch, like I said, which will help bind and to absorb a lot of that moisture. And since we do have some green onion, I don't think it'll hurt. And it'll give us some really nice visual aesthetics too.
I agree. A little bit of color. That's where the sweet potato came to mind for me too, like you. A little bit of color would be nice.
And that's because, most people only look at sweet potatoes as in a sweet application. And so they don't think that sweet potatoes can be used in a savory type of application. And so I think this is just one way that could be done.
I do love that we get to see your knife skills up close and personal. I don't know if anyone else is enjoying that, but I always like to see that.
Trust me, that took a lot of time, practice, and thank goodness, fingers crossed, I have not cut myself yet.
Very nice.
But yeah, a lot of practice and time and all of that.
Well, the diagonal slice, I'll tell you, it really does look professional. It looks, it looks like care was given to the dish.
All right, and then we'll add a little bit of beaten egg of course, as our binder. If you want, this can be vegan. You could use some aquafaba, which is the liquid from chickpeas, or you could also use some flaxseed. So make what we call a flaxseed oil. 1 egg and the flaxseed is, if I'm not mistaken, 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to 3 tablespoons of water. Let that bloom, and then that equals 1 egg.
Yep, that is the ratio. 3 tablespoons of water, and you can do that with chia seed as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is coming together very nicely.
I'm gonna add just a little bit more flour, just because I wanted to make sure that this is not too wet, because when we add it into our
steaming hot oil,
it's
ready, which you can look
yes.
at that and see. It's just steaming or smoking. Which would that be? That's a smoke.
Smoking.
Okay. But you do want your pan hot for this.
You do want to make sure your pan is hot. You don't want to make it too hot, because what will happen is in this, especially an application like this, because there is a little moisture in here, then it will pop, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. And then 2, you don't want your potato pancakes to brown too quickly. You want them to brown while at the same time cooking through. This is raw potatoes, raw apples, so you do want those to be able to cook through. And I just have like a little ice cream scoop. So if you have like a little scoop, and you can make these as big or as small as you want, and you can have your kids or grandkids to help. And so I'm just doing a scoop.
It is a petite scoop.
You can make these as big or small as you'd like.
Yeah, I think there is a balance there. You want it to be able to crisp up, but you also want it to cook through, heat through. And so this temperature of this pan looks perfect to me.
You may say, why aren't you flattening them out? Well, I want them to get some structure first. By them heating up in this pan like so, and at least getting that bottom to start to crisp, that will stabilize the whole potato pan latke. And then when I flip it over, then I can kind of flatten them out.
Very good.
There's always a method to my madness.
They look exceptionally good to me.
Just like if you're searing a chicken breast or any protein, we just want to make sure that they've crisped up enough and we don't rush them. You know, that's the key. When cooking, we always want to rush the food.
Don't we? Always in a hurry.
Yeah, it's always in a hurry to, all right, let's flip it. It's like, no, just let it do its thing. And so I can already see it's getting a nice brownness on the bottoms. They're not sticking. So that's a good indication.
They look good. Does anyone have any questions in regards to this process? No? Okay. A little extra salt going in.
Now, let's see. That was the first one we put in. Oh, yes. Flatten him out. Nice golden brown. They're not too brown.
Yeah, they look good.
And that's why it's important, like I said, to make sure that the temperature of your pan and your oil is just right, because that's what you want. You want a nice golden brown.
Say that again. These look really, really good.
All right. So basically from here, we'll just let them brown on the other side, let them finish kind of cooking through. And then you'll pull those out on a paper towel or so. And, you know, like I said, you can have these for breakfast. So a side of eggs or a nice egg scramble or so with some tomatoes. I'm like, you know, we're still I still consider it somewhat in summer. So some nice heirloom cherry tomatoes, some other vegetables or so, some zucchini, some squash. You can even grate some zucchini in this. I'm just adding everything. These latkes could end up being the whole breakfast meal.
I would put these on dressed greens.
Yeah, some nice dressed greens would be really good.
That looks good.
So let's get the paper towel.
Wow. Pretty nice.
Darlene, if anyone has a question or a comment, just wave to me so I can know that there's something that I need to address.
I will, but I think everybody's just memorized by being up close to Chef Jason's cooking.
All right, so now let's get ready to take them out. Oh, yeah. And they smell great.
Nothing like a fried potato. Nothing like
And like I said, you know, we want to keep this definitely more health conscious. Doing the sweet potatoes, I think, would be really great. So that's a good option to add in here. Even
the zucchini too.
Or the zucchini, I think would make it really, really great.
Although I do love like the occasional green onion showing up. Like I think that looks really, really
It does. It really
enticing.
kind of brings that out, yes. So we'll let those kind of finish up in there. But, of course, can't have a potato latke without a little dollop of sour cream. Now, of course, if we wanted to, we could add just a little Greek yogurt or so to this.
Or
Keep it all the way healthy.
Everything in moderation.
And some of those.
And I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that to make it beautiful.
Of course, we have green onions in it, but it doesn't hurt to also garnish with some of those diagonally cut.
Yes. And I'm going to show this to everyone.
Wow.
Gorgeous. Very nice. Very appealing.
It's really simple, really quick. You can get the kids, you know, school has gone back in, so I think this is a great way to be able to integrate some nutritional value for kids for breakfast. You can make a bunch of these, freeze them, and then just kind of warm them back up. And the kids can have them for breakfast. Here they don't know there's sauerkraut and apples in them.
Right? Especially if there were sweet potato and
Yes.
Zucchini.
So I think
Very
it would be
nice.
a really, really great option for kids for breakfast too.
We do have a question. Can you bake
Sauerkraut make them
There's
to
a question.
avoid using oil?
average, or would that make a difference?
It won't. I'm sorry, there's two questions.
No.
that came across.
Yeah, Darlene. I'm sorry, Darlene. What was the question?
The question is, could you bake to avoid using the oil?
Roast it. What would you say? You'd have to be at 450.
She's saying if she wants to just put them in the oven.
Yeah.
Yes, you probably about a 425 to bake them up.
425 to roast in the oven or bake in the oven and avoid the oil. Yep, that's an option.
And
And
then,
then Angie has a question too.
So does using the sauerkraut make them cook faster than if there was cabbage in it, or does that not make a difference?
Because the cabbage is, or the sauerkraut is essentially cooked.
It's essentially cooked. I mean, I guess it would, per se, since it is uh, cooked already, in a sense. I think the cabbage in a raw state, uh, because the potatoes are raw, and I guess if you shred them nice and thin, I don't think it will affect the cooking process, because it'll cook right along just like the potatoes and the apples in a sense.
When
It
things
might
are
give it a
shredded,
different texture, but
all right.
once it's shredded, because it's shredded, it'll cook up really quickly in the heat, or if you put it in the oven.
We do have another question from the chat.
So those look
Do they-
really good. We have Lori here to this time to be able to be the taste tester. Unfortunately, I know you guys can't
Twist my
taste.
arm. Right? Twist my arm.
Chef Jason, we have a question from the
Okay,
chat.
sorry.
Do these freeze well?
Say that again, Darlene.
Do these freeze well?
Do these freeze well?
Yes, that's what I was explaining, that, once you allow them to cool down, and then put them in like a Ziploc bag, make sure all the air is out of them, and put them in the freezer. Yes, they should freeze up just well. Almost like what do you call those, hash browns?
Yes.
Like a hash brown patty, and then you just be able to bring them out and bring them back up to temperature. I probably throw them in the oven at that point to bring them back up to temperature if you freeze them.
Delicious. I mean, it's so fresh and wholesome tasting. Plus, you've got the onion and the sour cream there that feel a little indulgent to me. So it's really, really good. Really good. We picked a winner. This is definitely one you guys should do at home. Definitely. Okay. Okay, so our second dish tonight, are we going with the kimchi fried rice?
Kimchi fried rice.
I'm going to eat my whole potato pancake while we work on that.
So our kimchi fried rice, anybody likes fried rice, this should be no, I guess, new, except with the addition of the kimchi. So we're really making this more of a Korean type of style with the kimchi, because that's basically what kimchi is. It's a Korean staple. You'll see it in a lot of their dishes, and all it really is fermented or pickled cabbage. But it's been fermented and pickled with, and you can see it here,
Hot stuff.
it's been fermented with some chili, Asian chili paste, some ginger, garlic, all those type of flavors in the pickling or the fermenting process, and giving it some really great flavor. I mean, I wish you guys could smell this, but it's nothing to be afraid of. I know you may have seen it or seen it in certain dishes before, but it really is a great addition to any dish. You'll see it in a lot of Japanese cuisines or dishes also. Today we're going to just add it to our fried rice, and I'm going to use air quotes because it is fried rice, but we are using cauliflower rice.
Nice.
Okay.
To make it a really fully, I mean, it really is a plant-based dish at this point.
Yes.
So,
And I know in the recipe it says you can use either, but if you are open to the cauliflower and that seems appealing to you, you take down the carbohydrate content remarkably with using the rice cauliflower. So I do recommend that. It's going to give you less of an insulin response and give you a more consistent energy level.
most definitely. So just like any fried rice starts off, we have garlic and ginger. Most Asian dishes are going to start off with those two items, ginger and garlic. So we're going to start off with those. And of course, you know that because you are starting off with ginger and garlic, that you don't want your heat up too high, because if that garlic burns, it becomes bitter. So you want to be careful about that, because everything from this point will go quickly, because you want to be able to get everything in there before that garlic or that ginger gets burned.
Okay. And Jason just hit the garlic, and we know that a lot of the health benefits from garlic are when those sulfur compounds are released from the garlic press or the chopping or even the chewing of the garlic clove. So Allison is one of those that has the most health benefits, and that's plentiful in the garlic. And so that's what he's doing now. He's mincing the garlic and allowing us, allowing whoever consumes this to have access to those really medicinal properties from the garlic. By the time you put that with the ginger, ginger is actually a root that's related to the turmeric and cardamom. So lots of medicinal benefits in these two compounds.
Now, I will say, because anybody who's made Asian stuff, or even fried rices or so, anything Asian, do not cook with sesame oil. Sesame oil has a low smoke point oil, so you don't cook with the sesame oil. Sesame oil is more of a finishing oil. So we're just using some regular olive oil to start off, or you can use like some canola or something to that extent. But do not start off with your
Aiden's gonna text me.
with sesame oil. Usually
When
add
she's
that
done
at
with
the end.
work. No, when they're on their way or when they get here, they're gonna spend some
So we
time
have
here.
some
I don't know.
frozen peas and carrots that we've allowed to
Just
thaw
hang
out.
with us, Dave.
Toss those with the garlic and ginger. So that's going to flavor those really well. And if you notice, I didn't have my garlic and ginger in there long, just enough so they became fragrant. Because like I said, that second past that, they could burn and become bitter and change the whole flavor profile of your dish. All right. So
Looking good.
we're just warming these through because like I said, these are frozen peas and carrots that have been thawed out already. All you're doing is warming those through.
We're getting lots of nutrition from this addition to our garlic and ginger. We're getting beta carotene and lots of fiber from the peas, which are actually a legume, which
Yes.
means they're more related to the lentil, chickpea, and peanuts. I know. That's interesting.
That is very
might be something that
interesting.
people might not know about green peas. Black-eyed peas, yellow peas, and purple peas are all legumes.
So now we have our kimchi, and I don't know if you guys can see that. And all it is just chopped up cabbage, like I said, that has been fermented, and some really nice, wonderful chili paste. So we're going to add that in because now that's going to give us another layer of flavor. And this is not just regular green cabbage. Now, you could use that if you were to make kimchi, but this is actually Napa cabbage. So it is an Asian cabbage, which is used in the making of kimchi.
Looking good. Very colorful. It smells amazing. And with the kimchi, we are diversifying our gut bacteria, which is always good for immune function.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if you notice, I'm going to make a nice little pathway because we're going to add some egg. You can't have fried rice without eggs. So we're going to add a little bit of egg in here that we'll kind of just scramble in the pan. Now, normally, if you were using regular rice, you would add your regular rice in here and then be able to do this. But because we're using cauliflower rice that I've already steamed off, cooked off and steamed off and cooled down, so it won't take long for it to kind of come back up to temperature. So that's where we're going to go ahead and do the egg, and then we'll toss in the cauliflower rice to warm through the whole dish. If you're using regular rice, you could go ahead and add your regular rice or brown rice in here, already cooked and cooled. That is the key. Any fried rice, you want to make sure your rice is been cooked and cooled down, and then you add it in. You don't want to add that in like you just made it on the pot, on the stove, because then it's going to become very mushy. So we'll take one egg. Now you could scramble that egg, or you could do as I'm doing, is just crack it right in there, kind of scramble it in the pan. Guess what? We're just gonna
There's an extra 7 grams of protein added to the dish. It's going to give it some body, not to mention flavor.
No idea that was the method.
That is how. Like I said, you can go ahead and scramble it and pour it in, but that's how they get that egg in your fried rice.
Really?
Why waste another pan?
There you go. That's why you're here. Technique.
Yep.
We are here to learn.
So we'll add our cauliflower rice in there. And we're just going to warm our cauliflower rice right through. We're going to let it get tossed in all those wonderful flavors from the kimchi. And we're going to add some soy, because what's fried rice without some soy sauce? And we'll add our sesame oil.
Which is very flavorful. So you just want to be kind of sparing with
Yes,
that, don't you feel?
because sesame oil goes a long way. And for a lot of people, it can be kind of overwhelming because a lot of people associate it with like a burnt oil type of flavor. So yes.
That came together pretty quickly.
Really quick, really quick. I mean, we had breakfast with the Latkes. This is lunch. I mean, you can't go wrong. And I mean, they both take no time at all. Really, really, really quick.
And this is gonna be a really nice leftover. It's not gonna lose its integrity.
Not at all. So that's warms through. You notice you don't have to add any other like salt because the soy sauce in there is going to be your sodium. You don't want to add any other salt into that. Now the recipe, I think, even calls that if you didn't want to scramble your egg in there, which I like this also, is that you can take that egg and do it in a separate pan as an over medium egg, and then just put it right on top of your fried rice. And as you crack into that egg, the yolk just kind of runs down into.
That's a nice presentation.
Presentation.
This smells really good. And what I smell is the sesame oil.
Yes.
Like I get that. I do too.
Now, let's do a small trick here.
Oh, cute.
We've got an onion pom-pom.
We've got an onion pom-pom coming.
Good. Look at that.
Good. Look at that. I didn't know you could curl them.
Oh,
Is everyone seeing this?
yeah.
It's just like Christmas ribbon. I love it. Look at that.
That's amazing.
I'm doing that. My kids will think I'm professional.
Little sesame seeds, white and black sesame seeds right on top there. And then you have a really nice, really quick, healthy, totally plant-based. I mean, the cauliflower rice, the kimchi, the peas and carrots. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. You don't have to feel guilty about it, but it's nice and flavorful and chopped full of wonderful, great nutrients.
Yep. Gorgeous. Very
Now,
nice.
if you're a person like me, then you would add a drizzle of sriracha to take it to another level,
Right?
to add just a little spice to that.
I think that's a great idea. Okay.
That looks great.
Very nice. Gorgeous.
There's our Nice.
All right. So it is beautiful. Our
It
last
is.
recipe will be a miso soup with greens and tofu. So again, we're kind of working with the fermented foods in an effort to support our immune system, diversify our microbiome.
Well, I think a lot of people are kind of intimidated when you say fermented. I think just that whole concept of something being fermented, I think that's where it throws a lot of people off. And so here we're showing you several ways on how to use some fermented ingredients, but still make a really great, delicious meal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I will say I have to give a disclaimer. When I was in culinary school, well, prior to culinary school, I was not a big fan of sauerkraut, even though my grandmother made sauerkraut every New Year's Eve because she believed that it was good luck,
Right.
to make sure that New Year's that you had black-eyed peas, sauerkraut, some type of pork or something to that nature.
Yeah.
And she would hide a dime in the sauerkraut. And whoever came across the dime in their meal, that represented some type of good luck
Nice.
for the rest of the year. So now, as grandkids, we were always just trying to fish through the pot and find the dime and rig the whole thing. But for me, it was like, but I wanted the dime, but I didn't want the sauerkraut. So I was wondering, how can I get this luck all year without eating the sauerkraut?
Right.
Because to me, sauerkraut had a very pungent, and I think that really turns people off is that fermenting, that fermentation that happens. So that's what gives sauerkraut that kind of pungent, strong flavoring. When I was in culinary school, my chef made sauerkraut, and we made it from scratch, and it changed my life because it wasn't that strong, pungent flavor. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I can't remember to this very day on how he did it. I wish I could probably call him to find out because he made me a believer for a hot second in sauerkraut. So yes, you're right. The next one is a miso soup. If you ever go to any Asian type of restaurant and get a soup, this is actually, especially Japanese restaurants, this is one of those their staple type of soups. And miso is nothing but your fermented soybean paste. So that's really what that is. And I know there's two types. You'll see like a white miso and a red miso.
Yes. It can be made from soybeans or chickpeas. Yeah. It's kind of a loose interpretation. You can do some different things and call it miso. Nori is dried seaweed, so that is going to be included here. What I want to talk about that a little bit, very supportive for thyroid function. It's a great source of tyrosine, which is an amino acid essential to the thyroid, and iodine.
Lori, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
You can't hear me?
Now I can. Thank you.
Okay, I think I had my finger over the speaker. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I was actually just talking about the nori, the dried seaweed, being a good source of iodine and tyrosine, which is tyrosine is an amino acid, and it's essential to thyroid function. And so this is a great source of both of those things that are really supportive in regards to the thyroid. Looks like Jason is just cutting up the
now this is probably the easiest soup that you could probably ever make. It is that time of year, I always say, as we start to move from summer to fall and of course going into winter. One of my favorite times of the year because you can make all types of soups and stews and all that kind of stuff. So it's always great to be able to kind of think outside the box. And this is probably one of the simplest and quickest soups that you could come up with. You know, most other soups require you to start off with a mirepoix, carrots, onions, celery, and then you got to let that cook down, and then you add some other things, and then it's on the stove for hours before it's considered good. This is a really quick, and with everything that you just said, you know, with the miso, with, we're going to have some kale in here. So a nice, strong leafy green, dark leafy green in here, or you can use some Swiss chard. With those elements in here, it's going to be really good and healthy. And I think it'll be nice and warm and inviting. So you could add some nice shiitakes in here. Some nice shiitakes could add in here too. And I think that'd be really, really great.
That would taste really good. One thing about the Swiss chard or the kale, they're comparable. You get 3.7 grams of fiber for 35 calories. And so I always like to point out, because that's a really redeeming quality. You get tons of goodness for not very many calories. The tofu also has a lot of redeeming qualities. This is the tofu right here. And so
we're using a firm tofu.
that's a firm tofu, 73 calories for a serving and 8.1 grams of protein. And so when we think about trying to stay plant-based, this is a really nice way to stabilize your energy for the day and stay with just plants.
So you can see our nori, which is dried seaweed. This is what if you eat sushi, if you're a sushi lover, then that's what your sushi is wrapped in, is nori or seaweed.
That's a great tyrosine and iodine source.
Yes. So all we're doing is we're warming up some vegetable broth, because that's the base of this soup. Like I said, really, really simple. So we have our vegetable broth nice and warming up. And then here in a separate little container, we had our white miso paste. We mixed it with just a little bit of the broth outside of it, the cool broth. And you can use water, but I just used the broth because why not make sure there's flavor in it that you're going to end up adding in there. And the only reason it is just to make sure it's smooth, because once we put this into the broth, we want to make sure it's a nice smooth consistency and you don't want any clumps or, large kind of pieces of the miso paste in the broth. So we just kind of did that to loosen that up. So all we're going to do at this point is we'll add in our kale. We just shredded up some kale.
It's a very sturdy green, so it's gonna take a minute to get soft.
And that's the good thing about it, using a nice sturdy kale. I know somebody will ask, can you use spinach? You can, but because spinach is a little bit more tender, and this is a soup, you want something that can kind of hold up to the broth. And spinach being a tender green will really kind of wilt down really quickly. And this will also kind of give some texture, some character, I would say, to the soup. Then we have a little bit of green onion. Add some of that in there. And of course, our tofu. So this is all bringing character to this soup.
And I always feel like the tofu just kind of takes on the flavors of whatever it's close to. And so good source of protein with not a lot of power to change a dish is how I always look at it.
Now, really simply, we will kind of stir in our miso. We'll just kind of let that simmer at this point. We added that in now, because now that's going to bring some nice flavor and what I call umami, so a layer of flavor to the dish. And then I will take some of my nori and just kind of cut them down. Now this nori actually that I found actually has, it's roasted nori. It came in the package like this, like nori sheets. And this actually has a hint of wasabi. So that's going to bring a little flavor to that. Wasabi is like It's like an Asian horseradish. So it's going to have like a little spice to it, which I liked that because I think it'll bring a different note to the dish.
Yeah. I love horseradish.
So this would be a great, I mean, with the change of weather, unfortunately with COVID and things like this will be a great to help even the respiratory. So it really kind of open up your respiratory system. So I'm just going to add a few of those nori pieces in here. And they'll just kind of wilt down.
And right there, that's your seasoning.
Yeah, that's seasoning this whole thing.
Lori, I have a question.
Yes.
So the recipe says that it's 1,817 milligrams of sodium. I'm guessing that the bulk of that sodium is coming from the vegetable broth. Is that correct?
Or the soy. It's a combination.
Yeah, because even the vegetable broth, depending on the vegetable broth that you use, like we try to use a low sodium or no sodium broth, then I think it does depend on what type of broth that you are using.
Yeah.
That could, and it might be the miso.
Soybean or chickpea paste. I would have to look at that. Is that a significant sodium source, the miso usually?
I don't think so.
I don't.
So it'd be really interesting to see where or what's causing that.
Yeah, I think it's probably the soy sauce and the vegetable broth.
So really simply, like I said, this is a quick, really simple soup full of nice flavors, textures, and this will really open you up.
Very pretty.
Lori, we have a question. Why is restaurant miso soup so salty?
Okay, so the question is, why is restaurant miso soup so salty?
That's correct.
They must have a heavy hand with their soy sauce, what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that unless I worked at I don't know.
I agree that it usually is quite, you got to be careful. I've had it where I can't eat it. It's so salty, but this tonight looks perfect. Beautiful. All right.
So the good thing about this is all three of these recipes, where they might have had a ingredient in it that you were either not familiar with or kind of unlikely to use in these particular applications, but they are very simple. All you do is, if you find the ingredients, which you can find at your local grocery store, they're very simple to be able to utilize and to be able to apply in this type of applications, and they don't take any time at all. So
yeah.
You don't have to be a chef or culinarian to be able to produce these particular recipes. And I think that they'll turn out really great, and you can kind of get your kids or grandkids in on them too, and they'll never realize that they're eating something very nutritious and healthy.
Nice. Well, thank you. I thought that was a great demonstration. And I personally, my vote is for the potato latkes. I think everyone should try those. That was delicious. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you give these recipes a try.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Any further questions for tonight? Seems simple enough for everyone to try at home.
Yes.
Everybody's quiet tonight.
Well, I don't know that we could hear if anyone was talking. Should I stop my video?
So Lori, we have a question. It says about baking or roasting the latkes. How long in the oven? You mentioned the temperature of 425, but how long should they bake or roast?
For about at 425, I would say at least 10 to 15 minutes. You can check them at any point during that time, because the key is you don't want them to be too brown, but not done, because there's egg in there. So I would check them between 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to ask a question too.
Okay.
Well, two questions. Can you add a different flour than white flour to the latkes? And will the recipes be posted somewhere?
So as far as a different flour, like I used a gluten-free flour in this one. It really depends on the ratios, because some different flours, the ratios are different in comparison to like all-purpose flour. Now I use what we call a one-to-one gluten-free flour, so there's no difference in measurement. If it's 1 cup of all-purpose flour, then this particular gluten-free flour was 1 cup. But some you have to change the measurement to make it equal to if it were all-purpose flour. So if you wanted to use a wheat flour, if I'm not mistaken, is that like a whole wheat flour? Is it pretty much this?
Fiber, yeah, would be an option for sure. I think you could probably use a rice flour.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could definitely experiment.
Yeah, so I would definitely be able to do that. I think, are they comparable as far as measurements?
They are. For something like that, I think it was 6 tablespoons of flour.
Yeah.
Was it 6 tablespoons? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you could experiment with that and it would work.
Thank you.
And in regards to where the recipes are, they are on our website. If you go to cancersupportohio.org, and I'm sorry, I don't have that pulled up here on my computer to show you, to do a screen share. But if you go to cancersupportohio.org on our virtual calendar under today's Cooking with Central Ohio Urology, when you do that drop down box, the recipes are listed there, and they're live, so you can download them right there from our website.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions for Lori or Chef Jason tonight?
Hope everybody